In this video I'm going to show you how you can make the reflections to these elements. But first I noticed that the boat doesn't look really that great compared to the original one, like here. So let's make some changes to it. So the first thing we're going to do is select both of these, Ctrl T, and then select the perspective here as we did in the previous video, and then expand the perspective a bit like this. Then skew, like bring this up like this, and then this down a bit, and now you can select the distort here. Sorry if I'm going a little bit too fast, but this is just some minor like improvements to this, so you can play around with this, and I'm sure you can nail the right perspective. Then we're going to distort the image a bit up, and then make the whole thing a bit smaller, like it is in the original one, like that. And I also realized that the boat looks different on this part. As you can see, it looks a lot more realistic here. So let's just erase some of the parts here, or we can actually warp the image. So let's make the curves layer invisible, because we can't warp if we have two layers. You don't have to warp here. So let's make that invisible, and then this, and bring the warp. So we can warp this down a bit, this up a bit, maybe that up a bit, and then the whole back part down like this, and this also a bit down. These are just like my perfectionism really shows here, because I wanna make everything like perfect. Now that looks really great. Then we just rotate it a bit, like that. Okay, now we have our boat, and now we go into the reflections. So let's move this up a bit and make it a little bit smaller here, like that, and then these two here. And now before we do the reflections, I remembered that this curves layer doesn't look great in this now, because this curves is made for the layer before we did these minor changes. So we can fix that by making this whole layer black first. So take brush and float 100%, and then just paint black over this area. So as you can see now, it's fully black. Then you bring Ctrl and click here on the new, and then just white over this. So now it's again on the right layer. So that's how you can use the layer masks if you want to make some changes later. Okay, so now we are going to work on the reflections, and all of my reflections are done with displacement maps. So that's the key for a perfect reflections. So how the displacement map is done is, the way is pretty complicated, but I'm sure you can follow along. The first thing we need to do is to figure out the image size, and you can check it by going to image and then to image size. And here you can see the size, and we need to halve this image size and put the resolution to 150 to a new document. So remember these and halve them to a new document. So we're going to cancel this and then go into new, and quickly, if I calculate, that's 2140, and that's roughly 2500. It doesn't have to be exact, but yeah. Then that's to 150, and then just click OK. Now we have a new document. So what we are going to do with this, first we're going to click this lock so we can edit it. And then we go to filter, then go to noise, and then add noise. And we're going to keep the amount to maximum, and then check that you have Gaussian and monochromatic clicked on. Then you just click OK. The next step is we go to filter, then to blur, and then to Gaussian blur. And blur this by 2 pixels. Then click OK. And the next thing we're going to do is go to this channels panel here. If you don't have this visible, then go to window and select the channels here. Okay, now I just click them off, and now I click them on. Okay, so now you should have them. And now you go to the red channel, and we go to filter, then to stylize, and emboss. And we're going to put this edge to 90 degrees, and the height to 1, and amount to maximum 500%. Then you click OK. And then we click the green channel over here, and we go to filter, then we go to stylize, then we go to emboss, and put the edge to 180 degrees and the same amount, like this. And then click OK. And now you click this RGB to select all of the channels, and then you click the layers here again. Okay. So now we have this weird looking thing, and you don't really have to understand why we did this, but I'm going to like show you how I do this displacement map. It doesn't matter if you understand what these steps meant, because I don't even understand myself fully, but like this will make an awesome displacement map for reflections, believe me. Then we're going to take Ctrl T, press Ctrl and T, and then to perspective once again. And now we're going to spread this, make zoom a lot out, and take the right or the left bottom part, and then just spread it a lot. Like in my image, I now expanded it like this amount, 3276%. Okay, so now we click here, and now this will, if you have a slow computer, that could take some time, but now it just did it fast. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check this tutorial here, and we try to check the horizon here where the water starts, and try to make the same thing there. So let's check. That's almost at half point, so we go here, and then we Ctrl T, and we take the distort, and we distort it almost to the same place where it is here. Okay, so Ctrl T, distort, and then it wasn't fully, now it's half, so a little bit up, like this. Now it's great. Then we click enter, and this will take some time again. And okay, now we have a file here, and if we now go to file, and we were about to save it, and if we name this displacement map, and we try to save it, it will say that could not save because it's too big. So we have, what we have to do to decrease this is to select this, then Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and delete the original one. And then we're going to take this here, and as you can see now it's only 11 megabits, and it was like hundreds of megabits just seconds ago. because it was spread, the image was spread like over here, so it's a really big file. But now we have it, now we have a small file, and now we can save it normally as a displacement map as PSD file. Because you could also like pick, there is the large document format, but for some reason the displacement map doesn't work with the large document, so we have to save it as a PSD file. So now we're going to name this displacement map and save it to anywhere you want. It doesn't really matter where it is. So now we're going to save it. Okay, and one thing you have to check is that you have 8-bit color channel. So go to image and then mode, and before you save, check that this is 8 bits, because displacement maps doesn't work with 16 bits channel. So make sure you have an 8-bit channel here selected before you save the displacement map. Okay, now we can close this, and then we're going to use the displacement maps. So let's do first the boat's reflection. So how I duplicate these is I choose, and then I go to duplicate like this, and now I'm going to make them as a smart object, because if we do Control E will combine 2 layers together, but sometimes when you click Control E, it will change the settings a bit, but smart object doesn't do that. So we're going to make a smart object like that, and then we're just going to take the smart object off. That's how I'm doing it. I'm sure there's a smarter way to that, but that's just how I'm used to do it, and that's the only way I know. So now we have 2 identical layers. Now you don't have the curves layer on the reflection anymore, so it's easy. The displacement map is easy to do on one layer. Then we go into Control T and flip vertical here. Okay. Then we bring this down to the point where these click here, like this. And then we're going to take the warp and warp this whole thing so this end goes to here. So let's take it like this, and then try to make it here like this. Okay, so that's good. Now we have a layer that is already looking like a reflection, but it really isn't. As you can see, there's a ripple, but there isn't. So now we are going to use our displacement map, and we can get the displacement map for going to filter, then distort, and then to displace. Okay, filter, distort, displace. Then you're going to put here 40 and here 60. So horizontal 40, vertical scale 60, and then check that you have stretch to fit and repeat edge pixels on. Then we click OK, and we search our displacement map file, and then we click open. And now it automatically creates the ripple here. Okay, so maybe this is a bit too strong, so what we can do is fix it. So we click Ctrl Z, or one thing that you can do is to make a smart object of this. So if it's a too big one, then you can just like with smart objects you can change the settings afterwards, but if it's a normal layer, then you can't. So now we go to distort and displace, and let's try a smaller horizontal size, bigger horizontal size and smaller, something like this should be fine. And now we go to OK and to this displacement map again. Okay, it looks pretty similar, but yeah, you can now change it by clicking here to the displays, and now you can change the settings here on a smart object again. Don't know why I didn't do that at the first time, but yeah, use this smart object thing. That will help you and save some time. Okay, so now as you can see, this is a little bit on the boat, so let's take this below these two, so now it's not on of them anymore. And now we have our reflection here, and what I do with my reflections, I take the fill or opacity down a bit. Here I put it to 60%, like this. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make this a little darker. So we control and then select this like that, and then we take the curves once again. That this curves adjustment is really important in Photoshop in general. I use this like really much, and what we're going to do here is we're going to take these highlights down like this. So in the right there is highlights, and in the left there is blacks. Okay, so highlights down, then blacks a bit up, and then we take the middle point, midtones here, and then we take them down a bit. Okay, so now we have a dark reflection here, and then we can take this fill out a bit so it looks better. Okay, now we have our boat reflection ready, as you can see. Now we just move everything a bit up, like this. And yeah, that's our boat reflection. And now we just do the same thing to the gate. So now I'm going to do it a little bit faster, since now you know how to do it. So choose these, duplicate them, then make a smart object. Then you can Control T, then just flip it, make it here like this, maybe spread it a bit. You can change the perspective how you want. I'm just going like this, and then what you do, you take the smart object off for a while, then you go to filter, distort, displays, and then you can test no. What did I just do? I took the what is that called? Smart object off of it, but yeah, don't take the smart object off. I'm just now being just crazy with this. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Just put the smart object back here. Convert to smart object. Okay. No, sorry if I distracted you there. I just, yeah. Now distort, displays. Then try if this works on this one. Yeah, maybe it's a bit strong here, but it will be fine. It will be just fine. Okay, so now we take the fill down a bit like this, and then the same thing for this. Curves, highlights up a bit, blacks up a bit, and then the midtones down a bit. Okay, so that looks good. Highlights a bit down. Here I did the highlights a lot more down because it was a brighter one, but here just a little bit highlights down, a little bit backs up, and then midtones just a hint down. And now we have our reflection to the gate. Okay, that's how you do reflections. Now you can use the displacement map whenever you want. It will work like 90% of the time, but sometimes you could have some complications with it. I have the experience with the displacement map that they don't work all the time, but most of the time they do. Okay, so that's how you do the displacement maps, and now you just can, like, if you want, you can combine the layers, but if you want to make some changes to them later, I don't recommend doing that. One thing you can do, I always try to keep backups in my projects, so one trick that you can do is to duplicate these like this, then make them to a group. You can do Ctrl J and that will take them on a group, and just make this group invisible and put it here, and you can name it reflection gate, and then you just combine these to a smart object like this, and then take the smart object off, and now you can easily focus on one layer instead of doing all the changes first to this and then to the curves. So that's just easier for me. Now put a layer mask on it, and then you can just refine the reflection. Put the flow to 20, 25, and then we start to refine it. So brush a bit off here, make a brush pretty large, and then brush a couple times here, and just make the reflection not that visible on everything, since that will make it a bit more realistic. So just brush around this like this. Okay, that's great. And the same thing you can do for this. So duplicate, then take them on a group, then make that invisible, reflection both, and then put that below these, and then you can combine these to a smart object, and now you have the reflection here, and make a layer mask on it, and then just brush some of it from here off. Like this. Okay, now the reflections are done. So that's how you do reflections. Hope you learned it. Now you can watch this video, of course, as many times as you want. So yeah, now we have our image pretty much like done, without the lanterns, of course, and lighting, but the basic elements are now here. Okay, so let's see you in the next video.